All right, I was looking for this, and I finally had to go to my computer, and was lucky enough to be able to bring it up. Here's that prick, Rudy Giuliani, making his tirade against Black Lives Matter and complaining about not being able to do a double segment on Face the Nation this morning.
Especially as police officers across the country have now come under attack by protesters reacting to the most recent fatal shootings of two African-American men this past week. Former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani joins us with his thoughts. Mr. Mayor, you're coming under some criticism for some of your comments about Black Lives Matter. Is that fair?
No, completely unfair. And I was just on CBS Face the Nation, and it is the reason why many people believe that the mainstream media is part of the Democratic National Committee. I was on, I stated my case. I said I have zero tolerance for police officers who are brutal. I put them in jail. And I believe that Black Lives Matter is a racist organization that is helping to fuel this. Now, if I had an organization called White Lives Matter, you would say it was a racist organization. Or Yellow Lives Matter. Or some group that divides us. All lives matter. That's the teaching of the major religions, and that's the teaching of our Constitution. Black Lives Matter instigates a lot of the hatred and the division, and every police officer in this country believes that they and their demonstrations, some of which are not nonviolent. Only the mainstream media makes it appear nonviolent. Some of their demonstrations are calling for killing police officers, slaughtering police officers, putting targets on the backs of police officers. So I made that point, that both sides have to stop. Zero tolerance for police brutality, and Black Lives Matter's got to back off and start working on, if you're really concerned about Black Lives Matter, let's start working on the real way most blacks are killed, like one every 14 hours in Chicago. The real way they're killed, which is black crime, and let's get control of it.
Yeah, but they, of course, would say, look, you've got these horrendous police shootings. You have Philando Castile and Alton Sterling.
Right.
We don't know all the facts, but he's being streamed on Facebook, and it's horrible. And you've got the other situations, the one in South Carolina, for example. So they do have legitimate.
And I began my opening statement by saying I offer my sympathy and condolences to all three.
Where do you think that?
In the first two situations, however, it's.
Yeah, he began his sympathy, but basically he says, yeah, you have my sympathy, but you shouldn't do anything, i.e. protest or anything else. So if they don't, who will? Because it damn sure ain't going to be you, you racist prick.
Being pursued by the criminal justice system, and we don't know exactly what happened, although the governor announced it was racist, a highly inflammatory thing to do. He doesn't know it's racist. He doesn't know what the motivation of those police officers are. It may be, it may not be. He should have kept his mouth shut. Second, when the police were acting, what were they acting to do? They were acting to protect a black demonstration against the police and against police conduct. And they got slaughtered and shot.
They weren't acting against the police. They were acting against corrupt, racist police, you prick. You want to paint the entire organization and everything they do with a broad brush, but you can't do that. It's just like you want to paint the entire organization based on the acts of a few individuals, where the entire leadership of Black Lives Matter, number one, says that they are non-violent. But you don't want to believe that. You want to take a couple of pictures of some young kids climbing on a truck somewhere, or a couple of kids breaking a window, and paint the entire organization like they are those people that are climbing on trucks and breaking windows. That don't wash.
And President Obama had the nerve to get on television yesterday and say he can't figure out the motivation of the shooter. Well, the shooter told us his motivation. Chief Brown had no trouble telling us his motivation. Here's what his motivation: to kill white lives, to kill white police officers, and to follow Black Lives Matter.
But how can you hold, in your view, black?
Okay, number one, he didn't say that he was following Black Lives Matter, you asshole. What he said was that he wasn't affiliated with any organization, okay, and that he was upset because Black Lives Matter. So stop changing words and misconstruing things. I honestly think this guy is running for a spot in Trump's administration. That's why he's coming out so, so crazy.
Lives Matter responsible for any of this. It was a peaceful demonstration before this deranged man came out and did this, before this killer opened fire. Is it your view their rhetoric? Is it your view stirring up emotions? Or is it really fair to tie them into something that happened in Dallas?
You
No.
said it. Stirring up emotions, their rhetoric, their demonstrations in which they yell and scream, kill cops. Those things are going to have an impact. It's the rhetoric of the governor of Minnesota saying that it's racist before he has a chance to look at the facts.
Yeah, and the facts was that it was racist. They profiled the guy, and they thought that he was somebody that he wasn't. So, yeah, the governor got it right, you prick. You're the one that's constantly getting it wrong. You're constantly overinflating your self-importance. It's just like you and your buddy in New York should have been prosecuted because your buddy, who you gave the communication contract to for the first responders, the police and fire that went into the World Trade Center, he knew his equipment didn't work. It hadn't worked previously when there was an attempted bombing of the World Trade Center, but you turned around and re-upped his contract. So those firefighters and police officers went into that building with equipment that didn't work, and that was your buddy. You gave him the goddamn contract.
X. And what should they do? I mean, how do you have peaceful demonstrations in the street of this country absent these type of emotions that are very deep-seated and very thoughtful by many of these people, and awakened by African Americans in a country who feel that they've been assaulted?
Notice I didn't condemn demonstrations. I condemned Black Lives Matter. Of course they have a right to demonstrate. I protected thousands of demonstrators. So,
Oh, it's just that Black Lives Matter doesn't have the right to demonstrate. What a douchebag.
all the time, demonstrated against me always, you remember. Protected them all, nobody ever got hurt. But when you start doing things like Black Lives Matter, and you start distinguishing blacks from whites, and Black Lives Matter takes no account of the 99% of the way in which the other black children died, then you have to wonder, what kind of group is this? And second,
Wait a minute, it's not your goddamn group. So if they decide that they want to focus on one thing, that's their option. That's just like saying that there's cancer out there, but if a doctor wants to just focus on one form of cancer, that he shouldn't do that. He should focus on all forms of cancer, or the greatest forms of cancer, instead of concentrating on something like melanoma or lung cancer or colon cancer. You know, they pick one and then they concentrate on that one, no matter how great or small an impact it has. Jesus.
they then put on these women, this woman from NAACP, who said the following: Mayor Giuliani has never not taken the side of the police. Mayor Giuliani presided over the most brutal period in New York City policing.
This was on Face the Nation this morning.
And they would not give me a chance to respond. Here are the facts.
Both of those things were true. Now, you can spout all you want, but you basically resided over one of the most brutal periods in New York City history, and that was right after the 1992 crime bill was passed by Bill Clinton, which allowed you to send out your Gestapo police into all the minority neighborhoods and arrest people like crazy. You basically suspended all the civil rights of all the minorities in New York City, boosted up the jail populations, and basically minorities were basically afraid to walk around in New York City because they were constantly being harassed. So you could talk that bullshit all you want, but you were hated in New York City. Nobody wanted to see you. Even when you showed up at places, you were basically booed out of there.
Reduced more crime in the black community than any mayor in history. I saved more black lives than any mayor in the history of the city. Over
Bullshit.
6,000.
The murder rate in New York was 1,300 or so in 1990.
1,924.
1,924.
And I left it to Mayor. I left it to Mayor Bloomberg at 500. He took it down to 300. I reduced it 65%. He reduced it 85%. If you calculate that, 75% of the murders are black. We saved somewhere between 5,000 and 8,000 black lives. So what would now be dead today? Now,
Bullshit.
That didn't happen in Baltimore. That didn't happen in Chicago under black Democratic leadership.
And finally, what should we do? I mean, what is your message to Black Lives Matter?
My message to them is
people of goodwill.
Get rid of the slogan. It is divisive. It's anti-American. It's anti-Christian. Of course, Black Lives Matter, but so do white lives.
It's anti-American and anti-Christian? Who the fuck made you the Pope? Oh my, this guy is the biggest racist role. And I mean, I thought that O'Reilly and Hannity were racist, but this guy, he leads the pack. Get rid of the name Black Lives Matter. Fuck you.
And so does every other life. And then she went on and said, I never went into the black community. I was in the black community all the time. I went to Hale House every year and took care of the children there. Harlem is Harlem today because of me, not because of Charlie Rangel,
oh my
not
God.
because of David Dinkins. When I took it over, it was a crime capital, and I left it with national stores that it never had before. And I did the same thing in Brooklyn. I fought and I worked for the black community, even though they never voted for me. I took cops from Park Avenue where they voted for me, and I put them up in Harlem to save black lives. And there isn't one of these black racial arsonists that has saved anywhere.
Yeah, you took the cops from predominantly white areas and you flooded all the black areas. So obviously over-policing never crossed your mind. Yeah, right. And that 1992 crime bill, 1994 crime bill had nothing to do with the reduction of crime because you were able to grab guys and easily throw them in jail.
Here's the number of black lives that I've saved. And I'll be darned if I'm going to have them malign my reputation and integrity. And also, everybody on this station should know that CBS is a completely unfair station because they would not allow me to go on and rebut the lies that were being said about me. Straight out lies. You know I prosecuted police officers. You know it.
Yeah, he prosecuted 2 police officers, and they were both slam dunks. One of them really was a low-level case, but the other one, the evidence was so weighed against that guy, he should have pleaded guilty and tried to plead down, but he didn't want to. So yeah, you prosecuted one guy, and that was after the whole goddamn world climbed all over you in order to prosecute that guy. The videotape of the African gentleman that got physically abused. I mean, that guy was raped with mop sticks and everything else. But yeah, but after those 2 guys that you prosecuted, name 2 more. You can't do it. And CBS gave you your opportunity, and the woman I felt from the NAACP basically rebutted what you said. So this isn't a courtroom. You say what you got to say, and people get to go up against you as far as debating or actually contending with the phony narrative that you put out there. But you got a hard on for Black Lives Matter, but Black Lives Matter is actually doing something. You're out there just blowing smoke up people's asses. That's why Fox loves you so much. And that's why you got pissed off at CBS, because they weren't going to put up with your bullshit.
Lied about it.
Mayor Giuliani, thank you. And we will get a statement from CBS on the mayor's claims later on today. Bring that to you when we have it, Mayor. Thank you for coming in.